Well, I got a surprise today. So I drove right after work to go pick up the rear drive shaft. So got this thing in there. It's 40.5 inches long. The length is perfect. So the place I go to is called Machine Services in Green Bay. If you're local, that might help you. I'm always happy with the shafts that they make. I had like 3 or 4 different ones made and they've always been really nice. As long as you don't mess up the measurement, they're gonna be exact. I also tested the function of the transmission today to make sure it goes forward and backwards, so I'll show you that. The trans brake, everything works. I did have an issue when I first tried it that it would only work in reverse, it wouldn't work in the forward gears. So I thought about it for a little bit, and if I held the button, it would kick on and then kick off and kick on and kick off, and then I remembered I put the speed parameter in there, which isn't gonna work at 2 miles an hour for the reverse circuit. So basically once it picked up wheel speed, it would shut off, and then it would kick it back on once the wheel slowed down. So I went in the tune, changed the wheel speed parameter to 10 miles per hour, and now everything works fine. This fitting is still leaking, unfortunately, so I'm going to pull the cooler out and then I'm going to weld this fitting on. And while I'm doing the aluminum, I'm going to finish up the cold side. After the cold side, I have to finish running the vacuum lines. These vacuum lines are going to be too short, so I'm going to run new lines. But I'm going to get this trans cooler out and start working on that. So you got this pipe all welded up. Not too proud of these welds. I was blowing through and having some issues on there. V-band doesn't look too bad, but just the way that this pipe was shaped, it's a little bit oblong, so it was kind of overlapping this pipe and it ended up blowing through, so kind of just had to fill it and make it work. This thing also was leaking a little bit. There's a tiny little pinhole like up here, so I ended up re-welding this whole thing, but I let it sit overnight and it was wet again on the bottom of it. So I don't know if it's leaking again. I can't see any leaks, but there was a little puddle on the ground and I could see a little line here. So I'm gonna have to just let it sit, because I did run it and heat cycle it again last night. Got it fully up to temp to do that trans brake test. So maybe sitting overnight with it pressurized from the heat, it started to push a little bit out. So I'll have to monitor that. All right, so I did go ahead and add my boost controller wastegate lines. I have this hooked up a little bit strange, a little bit different. I'm just gonna run a reference to the bottom of the gate. I'm not gonna add boost to the top. So I'm running it through terminal 2 and then out number 3. So the center is number 3. So this one is a normally open circuit. So essentially this is gonna give full reference all the time to the bottom of the gate. And then when I actuate the solenoid, it slowly starts to close off the reference to the gate and adds more boost. So these are 15-pound springs in here, so I don't really need to add much. And then later on, if I wanted to, I could use this other line to add to the top of the gate. So this is kind of set up how you would normally set up an internal wastegate that doesn't have a reference to the top, but that's how I'm gonna do it. So I'll leave it at 0% for now, and hopefully it ends up around 15 pounds. So what I did was I ran this thing through a piece of like 3/8 rubber hose, because I'm running it through the firewall, or down by the firewall. And you can see here why I wanted to run it inside, so it's a little bit protected. And then I just put a T in it to come around and go to the other wastegate. So essentially the line comes down, just gets split. One line goes to the bottom of the gate here, then the other line comes around and then goes over to the other wastegate. So this is essentially the same way that I had it set up before with the GT45 and with the 7875. So that wastegate that I had on there before was around 8-9 pounds, and then adding to the top of the gate, I was able to get it to like 16-18 pounds at 37% duty cycle. So this should work pretty decent. 30 pounds is going to make a lot of power with this turbo, so 15 pounds is probably going to make like 100-200 horsepower more than it was with the other turbo. So I might even be looking at getting smaller springs for that, like starting with an 8 to 10 pound spring and then tripling spring pressure would be kind of nice to have that range, but we'll try this for now. Alright, so I'm gonna transfer the learning to base for the fuel on that one. It only made like 4 or 5 pounds, and I gotta figure out if it's, I just checked it. I don't think it's leaking anywhere, but I would like to do a little bit of a longer pull and see if I can start to get some like exhaust soot inside of the wastegates. So if maybe the wastegates are actually opening that low, that would be really sweet if that's the case, because then I have a lot of control. My concern though is that I'm pretty sure my boost controller was set up, because I never changed it. I'm pretty sure my boost controller was still on like 37% duty cycle. Let me look. Yeah, 35%. So if it was at 35% and only making 4 pounds, that might not be good. What I should do too is be smart about this and actually check the transmission fluid level, because I haven't done that yet. I just put 12 quarts in, just as kind of a guess. That's usually what I do with the 4L80s on a pan drop or a rebuild, but I should actually check it, because I do have a factory dipstick in there now, so I should be able to check the level pretty accurately, where I normally just kind of guess. Maybe that's why I have transmission problems all the time. This might be one of my favorite builds yet.